So my talk is bubble acoustics. The aim is to save billions of lives. Can you hear that sound? Dripping tap. It's very familiar. Sound of a dripping tap. Water comes in, a water drop comes in, hits some water, makes the sound of dripping tap. Now we can visualize that here by dropping a drop of milk into coffee. This is particularly nice as it shows one feature people don't often realize, and that's the drop goes in, it forms this crown shape, a crater forms below the water, the crater closes, and as it closes, this drop comes up, and it's exactly the same liquid comes out again as went in. And when I was younger and faster and wanted to impress girls at parties, and they said, do you want your coffee black or white? I would say white, and as that first drop came out, I would catch that drop and say, no, black. And then when I got to about 28, I started throwing the coffee everywhere as I got older and slower, so I've stopped doing that. But those of you who are young should try it with people behind you. Right, now all that stuff you see, the crown, the crater, the jet, has nothing to do with the sound of a dripping tap. And I proved that with this experiment where a drop of water falls through air into a body of water shown here, and in the water I've got an underwater microphone. We call them a hydrophone. And then as I play this movie, I'm going to have a line travel across here, which is the signal from the underwater microphone. And what you'll get is when the drop hits the water first, you'll get this little wiggle. This isn't acoustic, it's not sound, it doesn't travel from one place to the other. It's a local pressure wobble. And then after a bit, you'll see this. This is the plink of a dripping tap. So by following the line and watching the movie, you'll see what causes that plink. So the initial impact, crater forms, and you've got about 7 seconds before the plink of the dripping tap. Now watch the base of the crater. 3, 2, 1, plink. So that tiny little bubble makes all the noise of the dripping tap. And that's because the bubbles are incredibly powerful sources of underwater sound. Show that just a moment. Okay, this one's very full of water. Shake it, silent. Take a bit of water out. Shake it, make sound. So the bubbles, in fact, are the most powerful naturally occurring acoustic entities in water. And they're like little instruments, like little bells. A big bubble will give out a low note, a blunk, the sound of a scuba diver breathing out, blunk, blunk. A little bubble, like the sound of a dripping tap, will give a plink, high note, so like little bells. And we've used that to, for example, listen to the oceans. Because when a wave breaks, like this, then it traps atmospheric gas. And about 1,000 million tons of atmospheric carbon is trapped this way by breaking waves, and it's pumped into the ocean where it dissolves. And that drives a lot of climate change. There's about 1,000, there's a big difference, perhaps 100% difference between what we think goes in the ocean and what we calculate must go in the ocean. And to measure that difference, it's due to the bubbles. So it's very important to calculate the bubbles if we're going to, for example, calculate the effect of a rise in temperature of the water in the Gulf of Mexico on hurricanes, things like that. We have to know that. So I set about going around listening to the oceans with these underwater microphones. Because every time a wave breaks, it traps all those little bubbles, and each bubble is like a chorister in a choir. They have one note to sing. Bing. If they're a small bubble, boom, it's a big one. So as you sound to the chorus of a breaking wave, generating all those bubbles, you hear the net note, and you know therefore how many bubbles were trapped and what the size was. So you know the amount of atmospheric gas that's being pumped into the oceans just by listening to the oceans. So did that, and of course got a good journal paper. It's up in Nature Scientific Communications. It's great. It took a lot of work, this paper. I'm very proud of it. Bury it with me if any of you are around at that time. I'm very proud of this paper. Because it's very important to write good journal papers if you're an academic. I'll leave you with the actual picture of the experiment because it's nice to go from the glamour of the experiment to what happened to the people who took the data. Go. Watch out! But the question is, are these papers enough? As Paul said, I don't think they are. What do we do with research? Well, if we look at a 2-year citation window for papers published in 2005, similar for other years, but this is the last one for which we've got solid data, 90% of papers in humanities are never cited by anyone, not even their own authors. All that taxpayer money goes on a shelf, nobody reads it. 45% in social sciences, 40% of papers in natural sciences and engineering. I don't know how much we spend as the budget, tax dollars, on natural sciences and engineering research. Must be over $1 billion. Half of it was not cited by anyone. And 20% in the medical fields. It just goes there. People write a paper, do some research, write a paper, put it on a shelf, it's gone. So I believe very much in not just publishing a paper, even a good paper that I want to be buried with, because that's a bit like throwing a ball and assuming someone will catch it. What I want to do is I know that this guy is an industrialist or he's a government minister or something like that, and I give him the ball. I go up to him, look, you need to know this. You need to know this, and this is how we will work together to make sure this will catch this bloody ball. That's what you do with research. So I do that. Right, so let's look at another one. The radiolite collapse of a conical bubble. I once dreamed of a conical bubble. I thought, actually, if you had a bubble the shape of a cone, the maths of that bubble would be nice. And indeed, it's quite impressive. You get quite big equations. I mean, not super big, but they take 2 columns of the paper. They're nice and big. Nice little thing. Why was I thinking about conical bubbles? Because they were interesting, but when they collapse right towards the point. You can generate high pressures in there. Pressures that are strong enough to penetrate skin. That produced the needle-free injector. So 1 million of those have been sold. Basically gives injections without a needle for this license for this migraine drug, Sumaval Dose Pro, FDA approved, and you can just do an injection without a needle. It's very nice. Hand it over, make sure that something happens to this crazy idea of a conical bubble. Baby scans. If sound can cause skin to be, if sound and bubbles can cause skin to be punctured, then several of us in the 80s were worried about the safety of baby scans because you have bubbles in your body all the time. Cosmic waves are passing through you like a bubble chamber, filling you with little bubbles. And when we put sound in, with ultrasound scans, we can activate those bubbles. And of course, the bubbles are microscopic. They're really tiny, but the ultrasound is very high frequency. So the relationship matches. Something extremely tiny resonates with a very high note. So we looked at that, and I must admit, as a young little whippersnapper, I got serve on a committee and write up a report with the giants in the field, many of whom passed away now. But it was a magical time. And that's now, so we wrote this paper. That became the World Federation for Ultrasound in Medicine and Biology Guidelines. Every child who had an ultrasound scan since 1998 was scanned by that. It's about 2 billion people. And every year it goes up by about 200 million more. So that's an effect of just sitting there thinking about, collapse a bubble, what will it do to tissue? Hand it over to the right people, in this case the World Federation, and you make a difference. Every year it's 200 million more births, and I think, yeah, I had a tiny bit of a hand in that. Baby scans. So a baby scan is formed when you send out a click, and it travels through the womb, through the uterus, hits the baby, I'll tell you afterwards, hits you, reflects off you, and from the time it takes to pick up that echo in that direction, I know the distance to my scatula. So I get pictures like that. And at a somewhat lower frequency, dolphins do the same things. They send out clicks, so they send out signals like this, and they pick up those clicks, and they're looking for a fish. If I was to blindfold you and fill the room with bells and ask you, are there any bells in this room, and you can't reach out and touch, you could shout, because the bells will ring back at you. Shout at a guitar, its strings will rattle at you. Go to a piano, press the sustaining pedal and shout at it. It will hum back at you. So those dolphins are looking for fish. The fish would be this young lady. You send out a click, look for the echo. And then what David Attenborough there is saying, but they also blow bubbles to try and make a net to trap the fish. Now the bubbles will scatter far more strongly than the fish. So, looking for you, but suddenly I deliberately filled the room with bubbles. I'm never going to find you, because these people are what we call clutter. In detection problems, we call them clutter. Things that scatter more strongly than the target. So the dolphins, we're saying why would the dolphins be blinding their best sensory apparatus, their sonar lights? It doesn't make any sense. So I thought, okay, I know what people will say, dolphins have excellent sonar. They don't. Dolphins have a very mediocre sonar. It's a myth that they have excellent sonar. If you take a dolphin, put it on the table, compare it to the best man-made sonar, the dolphin is mediocre. Its power is mediocre. Its frequency range is mediocre. It's mediocre in every possible way, except two. One, it's on a mobile platform, so it can come and it can look at the target from lots of directions. Very fast mobile platform. The other one, it's got a brain. Now, I'm not a mobile platform. I'm falling apart. My brain's okay. So I thought, okay, dolphins have had 10 million years to figure this out. Is there a way of just using a brain to design a sonar pulse that can see through these bubbly clouds? So I thought about it, and I said, let's look at the problem. So this is an actual sonar signal. So here we're looking at the image in the y-axis, and this is the range going up to 2 meters, and somewhere in that bubbly water there is a weightlifter's weight. It's this big. It's steel. It's a massive target. And all we've done around it is blow a dolphin bubble net. And you can see the problem. The best man-made sonar cannot find it in this bubbly water. What would I do if I was a dolphin? So I said, okay, what I would do is send out 2 clicks. Click, click. The second one being half the amplitude of the first, or a quarter or a third. It doesn't really matter. As long as the first one and the second one are identical but different amplitudes. You could also use different phases. You'd have to use clicks. You can do whistles, chirps, things like that. It doesn't really matter what the thing is. There just has to be a known relationship between the two, and I've chosen here the amplitude difference because it's the easiest to make. Click, click, I can do it. A dolphin should be able to do it. So let's call this the signal, whatever that Greek letter is. Psi? Okay, so the scatter from the fish is the echo. Now the fish is a lump of fish meat. So what you get back is, you send out click, click, and it goes out, hits the fish, and comes back as click, click, same echo. So the dolphin, the echo, is going to be the same as what was sent out. A click with amplitude 1, followed by a click with amplitude half. But the bubble wobbles. It's like a bell ringing. And so it doesn't send back the energy of the signal that was sent back. It sends out the energy squared because it's pushing more energy into it. Here it is. So let's say the dolphin sends out click, click, and we have fish and bubble clatter. Now the dolphin calculates the scatter from the fish. It's got 2 echoes to play with. Let's say it takes twice the second echo and adds it to the first echo in its head. 2 times a half, the second echo, plus 1, the first echo, is 1 plus 1 is 2. It gets a signal of 2 from the fish. Scatter from the bubble, remember, is squared here. It's 2 times a half squared plus 1 squared. That's 1.5. See, the clutter is also visible. But now I take those memories and I subtract my memories from each other. So I take the first echo minus twice the second echo. 1 times 2 times a half is 1 minus 1, which is 0. Suddenly, the fish becomes invisible. And the bubbles never do. Half squared, you always get something from the bubble. So I send out click, click, and what I'll see is a field like this. And then I add and subtract my memories from each other, and as I do so, the fish will flash. That's what I would do if I had a big brain and was in the ocean, 10 million years to think about it. Does it work? Sure it does. There's the weightlifter's weight. It's exactly the same signals. Didn't change the acoustic signals at all. I just added and subtracted them in the appropriate way. Added from the computer memory, just as I would do from the dolphin memory. So, and if you actually listen to these clicks, the dolphin does not go click, 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 click at the same amplitude. It goes up and down, up and down, and up and down. I think people never, I don't know whether people thought dolphins were lazy. I don't think they're lazy at all. I think they're doing a bit of nice non-linear mathematics. Got a nice paper from it, and unproven, of course. I specialise in never proving anything, but it's such a good story, why wouldn't you get a kick-ass paper from it? Kick-ass paper is a good thing. Don't leave it with the kick-ass paper. We built a man-made sonar, and this is now being developed because it's really important. Most of the history of sonar was about the Cold War, and it was about, I don't know, allies looking beneath the polar ice cap in these kilometre-deep dark waters for nearly silent subs. And then the Berlin Wall fell down, and all the warfare at sea turned to be in the Gulf, shallow water. Look at that filthy shallow water with all those bubbles and mud coming from the Tigris and the Euphrates. And because of that, the mines that Saddam Hussein laid out couldn't be seen. And so the Tripoli and 2 other ships were destroyed, people were killed, well damaged, people were killed. For mines you can buy on the internet for $15. Millions of dollars damage, deaths for a mine you can pick up on the internet for, I don't know, 3 hours of window cleaning. So you want to find the bubbles. Turns out you can do it. So did that, good sonar saves lives. But of course, when I looked at the maths, this psi equation, what you could do with it, and the subtraction of memories, it was just maths on the page. It didn't have to be sound. Would work for electromagnetic radiation. So we could do it for MRI pulses to get a difference between tissue and cancerous tissue. We could do it for LiDAR, looking at fires over California. We could do it for radar. These soldiers are doing a clutter detection problem. They're trying to find improvised explosive devices, and the problem with improvised explosive devices is the people who make them can get rid of every bit of metal in them except this, which is the trigger. It's about 2 centimeters long, weighs about a kilogram. No, not a kilogram, 2 grams. So, and it's buried amongst a load of bike parts and Coke cans and the rest of it. So you can't find it with radar, you can't find it with magnetometers and that kind of thing. But I thought, well, let's equip the radar with my double pulse thing. So we built a radar, we buried it with big lab vice and sheets of metal and mobile phones, and there's a map. And when we scanned the area, one thing was red. That's 30 dB more, that's 1,000 times more powerful scattering than the rest, and it was the IED. And I could tune it differently to find the mobile phones, because should this building collapse, they'll never find you with radar. You're just bags of water, and you're surrounded by big bits of metal. But we all carry a phone. And this is a passive device, so I could take this phone, take the battery out, run a car over it a few times, and I can still make it shine to radar 1,000 times more powerfully, turned off, than the girders, and find you. So I hand it over. We got a good paper from that too. I'm not allowed to say whether I handed it over to anyone, because that would be wrong of me. So this little bubble that scatters, I want to tell you a little bit about this one. I made a cleaning device out of this. So if you clean with bubbles, some people use ultrasonic cleaning baths. They're fine, but you can't put anything in it that's bigger than it. And if you clean something biological in it, it leaves a soup. It's sitting a soup of contaminated CJD or rabies or whatever it is that you clean up. You can use a pressure washer to clean, but to be honest, you can cut through metal with a pressure washer. You can make a pressure washer as big as you like, but you can't deal with it. You can't use it if it's going to do damage, if it's going to shred your rope, your fabric, and the aerosol, the spray it leaves is pretty bad. You'd never pressure wash a sewage line, for example, because it would spread sewage everywhere. So the way the bubbles collapse in these ultrasonic cleaning baths is they grow large, it's attached to a metal surface, there's a low sound pressure, the bubble grows very, very large, and in a high pressure it tries to collapse. But there's no flow from where the solid is. No liquid comes up in that direction because it's solid, so it collapses from the top, and you get this little jet, goes through the middle, very fast, and it cleans. But the problem is that actually damages the thing you put in. So there's some foil dipped in, half of it dipped in, you can see that it damaged it. So ultrasonic cleaning baths, fine. These things, fine, they damage. No good if you want to clean lettuce or basil. This is basil. Basil is hard to clean. It's sold fresh, ready to eat. You can't boil it. You can't clean it with bleach. You've just got to clean it as best you can with as little chemicals as you can. And then the supermarkets bag it up and they sell it to you as ready to eat. So I'm looking at ready to eat salad, and when I put this under the microscope, ready to eat salad, cleaned for 1 minute under a cold water tap, that's the fecal bacteria on it. It just sits there from the ground, the runoff, the cattle, the whatever. So I developed a cleaning device that doesn't punch like that, it has a dancing bubble. Because if a bubble dances like this, then as it comes back to a surface, it will shimmer next to it and cause a gentle scrubbing machine. It's a gentle scrubbing effect. So gently scrub it. So my device, yeah, it scrubs the fecal bacteria away. So I've got a device here that cleans gently and effectively using just cold water with nothing else. Basil leaf here was cleaned, and that's important because in the States, last year more people died from romaine lettuce than died from terrorism. It's quite a problem. And if you can clean a lettuce leaf of this fecal bacteria, you can stop people getting sick, but you also you reduce the levels of antibiotic resistance growing. Of the 210 people who were sick, 5 had antibiotic resistance. I'll get back to that later. Because I'm not using chemicals to get rid of this stuff, I'm using just water, sound and air. You can also increase the shelf life. So this is a normal basil leaf, and this is one washed with my dancing bubbles. You see, it lives a bit longer. That's important. We have to feed 2 billion people. It's 2 billion people again, they tend to come in that quantum. 2 billion people, feeding them is critical. Extending shelf life is critical to the 5-point plan to feed the extra 2 billion people we're going to have in the world by 2050. And currently 25% of the world's food calories and 50% by weight are lost or wasted from consumption. So I'm saying use my bubbles and we can add a few days shelf life to all that fresh produce. It won't go slimy in your fridge quite so quickly. Transport. It'll live longer, feed more people. So how do I get these little shimmering bubbles to work? I'm very good with bubbles. See, here's a bubble and it's shimmering, and I'm about to turn off the sound that's making it shimmer. And you can see I can even put my logo inside a bubble. What I'm doing, people say, well, how are you doing it? Well, to be honest, I'm thinking there's a hell of a lot of equations in this, because you're trying to, you hit the bubble with an oscillating sound field, and first of all, it wants to pulsate. But what's happening is it's all the time trying to go, it's not quite chaotic, but for the layman, you call it chaotic motion. They're trying to become unstable. And you're putting sound energy in, and all the viscous forces are trying to dissipate it and say, don't go stable. But you hit it right, and you can make it go unstable. And then you hit it right again, and you make it go from an unstable form to a stable one. Let me explain. You watch, this high-speed movie, this bubble on the bottom left, it's going to pulsate for a moment, and then you'll see it suddenly go unstable, and then suddenly flip down into a stable form. You have to catch it, it's very fast. So I'm about to hit it with a sound field. Pulsate, wiggle, stable. So I make that bubble shimmer. I make it shimmer all the time, and it goes away cleaning where it cleans. But it's doing something else. It's not rising under buoyancy. Bubbles rise under buoyancy. This one doesn't. And the reason is because the sound field will keep it there. That's really powerful, because I want to send bubbles where I want them to go. If you want to clean a surface, like these desks in front of you, it's very easy to clean a flat surface, wipe it, brush it. Just can't get in the cracks. The traditional ways of cleaning will not get into these cracks. So I want to send the bubbles into the cracks. And I can do it by making the sound echo around those cracks. Let me give you a quick explanation. Here's the surface. Sound comes in, hits the bubble, makes the bubble pulsate, scatters off the bubble, hits the wall, bounces off the wall, hits the bubble again, draws the bubble to the wall. Now, you didn't understand any of that because I taught it very badly, and that's because you're not bubbles, you're people. And people use their eyes and light. So let's replace the bubble with you and the sound by the light. Let's do it again. Sound comes in, hits me in the eyes and the face, bounces off my face, hits a wall, bounces off the wall, hits my face again. We call that looking in the mirror, because a place that's reflective to light is a mirror. Now, when you look in a mirror, you see a mirror image of yourself the other side. The same with the bubble. It sees a mirror bubble emitting pressure fields just as it does the other side of the wall. And two bubbles emitting exactly the same pressure field attract. Now let's say I've got a crevice like this. That's like having two mirrors at a right angle. So when you look in there, you don't just see one reflection, you see many. So the bubble sees many twins and is drawn in. So if I make a crevice, I can make the bubble find it automatically, and as it goes down, it's shimmering and it'll clean for me. So here's a crevice. It's about the size, it's a cylinder about the size of a human hair. At the bottom, I've put a cleanliness sensor, and this is the output of the cleanliness sensor against time. At the top, I put a sticky contaminant, and it fills this bit. I know that because it starts off being dirty. It doesn't look black because I'm only looking through the thickness of a human hair of it, so it's not thick enough to absorb the light. And as I play the movie, you'll watch, this will go, there's the bottom of this thing will be dirty, 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 and it'll go clean. And the reason is it'll be dirty, dirty, the surface will be washed off, and then the bubbles will find the crack, and then they will burrow in, wiggling as they go, and then it'll go clean. So here we go. In comes the sound waves, washes the surface, and now the bubbles find the crack, and they're wiggling. If you look carefully, they're wiggling, 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 and they get to the bottom, and it goes clean like that. So, dancing bubbles, I can make them go where I want them to go, and where they go, they will scrub. Built it into a device like this, so water comes up the top here, a little gentle trickle comes out, like just turning on a tap. The way it works is the water comes up, into this acoustic cone like this. Here comes the water into this acoustic cone like this. Send sound waves and they travel down the stream with the bubbles, and they activate this instability on the bubbles and make them clean the surface like that. So for example, if I take the, here we are, this is an old city porous tile, and I've got a stream of water going on it, and as it tracks across it, it's just called water. After 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I'll turn on the sound of bubbles, and it will clean. So it's a nice little cleaning device. So if we look at teeth, 1/3 of the world's population, happens to be 2 billion people again, 2 billion. They suffer from untreated tooth decay. I want to build them something, and of course a lot of those people can't get hold of toothpaste, toothbrushes, but I can give them a stream of water. Here are 3 types of dental bacteria on corrugated surfaces. This line is 500 microns. Covered in bacteria. Wash it the normal way, and you can see this is still covered with bacteria. This has the surface, top's clean, but not the crevices. Wash with my device, cold water, sound, and air, and it cleans the teeth. Stain the bacteria purple, and you can see again, normal teeth cleaning doesn't do it, my device does. So it's a teeth cleaner. It's good for mouse brain on surgical steel. Why are we interested in that? Because people get infected by surgical instruments. If one person A has an operation and the surgical instrument is taken, then they're not always guaranteed to be clean when they go into patient B. And this is particularly true for the very high value ones. A scalpel, you can buy billions of scalpels and you can treat them with enzyme. But an endoscope costs £100,000. Hospital can afford to have 7. That means between patients it's got 12 minutes to clean each one. Infection. So I thought, let's look at mouse brain. The worst case is when this is mouse brain because we're looking at CJD, mad cow disease, effectively, very hard to get rid of. This is surgical steel with mouse brain on it, dried for 24 hours. This is washed the normal water flow, rinse under a tap. Here we are again at the start, and now we wash under my tap. Paching. So that's being piloted in the NHS. We deliver the first units December into the NHS to clean surgical instruments between patients. And that's my company. That's our first device that we're giving off. Right, I'm going to skip through this one because I know time is short. It's bone transplants between people. This is a fun one. This is dead animals. So here is a dead pig. I'm not a monster, I didn't kill the pig, I went and bought this from Sainsbury's or something. We've wounded it, and then you see that yellow slime? That's a biofilm. People think of bacteria, little cells floating around. That's old hat. Bacteria actually live in a kind of carpet. They make stuff slimy, like your lettuce. So they like to do it. They grab bits of fungi and bits of it's the slime. It produces the soil. How do you think weed grows on up the walls weed goes on the side of metal sides of ships. It does it because the bacteria get there first, and they form this carpet, slimy carpet, and then other things can grow in it like a soil. So here it is, slimy biofilm. And this is the Pseudomonas aeruginosa. I probably got it on my hands. Trevor's got it probably on his hand. I'm washing really well, so I know I don't. The problem is, if he's having chemotherapy, this thing that I can live with quite happily on my hands will kill him. Hospital-acquired infections. They cause 90,000 deaths annually in the USA, 2 million patients infected, 45 billion costs. Pseudomonas aeruginosa is a very common one. It's found on the hands of many hospital workers. And if you look in this wound under a microscope, these are the bacteria. That's before washing. This is this wound washed by a nurse with saline. That's how they wash it. And you can see all it does is free up these bacteria to swim around a bit. Wash for 1 minute with my device, wash for 2 minutes with my device, and it's clean. So I've got a device that washes wounds, gets rid of biofilms, just with air, sound, and water. The thing about dead animals is they don't heal. I can tell you a wound is clean, and it'll probably heal, but it's not alive. So we're going to do it with live human skin now. So what we're going to do is take live human skin and we're going to skin an area. We're going to remove the epidermis, make a wound. You think I'm a monster. I don't start actually doing this till next year. This is actually done on surgically removed skin. So we just wait outside plastic surgery units and skin is taken off people and they come out with a bucket and they give it to us and then we can hang it up and we can keep it alive for about 60 days as we burn it, cut it, treat it badly, and then heal half of it. As I am a monster. So what happens, your skin gets stripped off, the epidermis is stripped off, and then signals go into the body. And those signals, they kind of tell your body to heal through a cell type called a keratinocyte, which then grows outwards from here. Now, what I want to do is use my wiggling bubbles to tell tell the body, look, you really need to start healing much faster. In particular for people, and there are many of them, for whom they have wounds that have stalled like a car. The healing process has stopped. I want to kickstart it by using my bubbles. And there's a lot of these people. The NHS does about $1 billion worth of amputations a year, just in diabetics. And then there's the other people with wounds. And these are wounds that will not heal. And of course, people throw antibiotics at them, which increases the likelihood of antibiotic apocalypse, but they won't heal. And I'm saying I can heal these wounds with air, sound, water, and nothing else. I'll show you an example of the wound. If you're squeamish, close your eyes. Close your eyes. Close your eyes if you're squeamish. This is the kind of wounds we're going to be treating next year. There you go. Pretty nasty. And they lead to amputation. I've got one of them. And I say, sadly, currently, this is the route for many diabetics, and it's what we're going to make. We're going to put an end to this. So here is the skin that has been stripped off. These are fibroblasts, these dark cells. This is the basal layer. You can see this is the area that's been stripped off here. And what we've done is, I know I can clean a wound and make it heal better. I know cleaning it will, but I don't want to do that. I want to actually stimulate the body. So I've kept these clean. I do not let these get dirty. There's no bacteria, no wound. This is a perfectly clean wound. Hopefully it will heal. And you can see, after 7 days, I strip it. After 7 days, that's the amount of skin that's grown. Now, if I run air, sound, and water through my device, but don't turn on if I run the water through my device and don't turn on the sound, you can see a slight increase in the growth. Now I'm going to take the air, sound, and water in the right mix, put my bubbles in there, and see, compared to these, if I can get the skin to grow. Yes, enormous skin growth. That's important. We've kick-started these wounds to heal. And what's more, do it with air, sound, and water. And what's more, the faster I can get skin over your wound, your skin is your shield. You survive for 100,000 years without drugs, without antibiotics. So this kept you safe. And you really only got ill through the breaks, the eyes, the gonads, genitals, the mouth, nose, wounds. I can grow skin fast. I can restore your shield fast. And I can do it without drugs. So why would we want to not use drugs? When you have drugs, wash your hands with antimicrobial soap, get your injection of antibiotics, you urinate them down the drains. They go into the drains, out into the wide world. Now, antibiotic resistance, as we know it, is there already. It's been there in the soil, the waters for ages. This is my antibiotic, this is my superbug. But this superbug does not grow because the rest of you who are susceptible to antibiotics just crowd out the superbug. But when I urinate my antibiotic out into the fields and the streams through the tap and the sink, the toilet, kills you guys off, and suddenly this person fills the niches. So next time I get infected, you're more likely to be the cause of the infection. And that's the problem. Now, with my device, only sound, air and water use, no drugs, so no sound goes down the sink, so you never develop this resistance. And this is important. Unless a solution is found by 2050, antimicrobial resistance will cost the global economy more than current size of the global economy and be killing more people than cancer. And that's not a warning, that's a fact. It's going to happen. And people can say, oh, I'll find a new antibiotic. If we find a new antibiotic, you can cross out 2050 and put 2060. That's all it will give you. Antimicrobial resistance and climate change are the two big things. People know about climate change. This is far bigger, and it's already here. I'll whiz through this. This is the level of samples, percentage of samples found to be antibiotic resistance in 2008, 2015. It grows, and it grows because of air travel and other things. Air travel is a big metal tube with 100 people, and they put the toilets right next to the food, and they have no idea how anybody washes their hands. And the first thing you do when you get off an airplane is touch a big rubber strip on the escalator. And the bacteria live on that for 1 year. So when you touch that, you're integrating up every person from Chile, every person from America, all their bacteria and yours mixed on that strip. So it's a problem. Time may come when penicillin can be bought to anyone in the shops. There is danger the ignorant man may easily underdose himself and exposing these microbes to non-lethal quantities of the drug, make them resistant. This is a warning, classic warning, that super drugs are coming. Antibiotic resistance will cause an apocalypse. It was made in 1945 by Fleming when he got the Nobel Prize for discovering penicillin. So this is coming. What I've given you is temporary. Take it seriously, and we didn't. So now we know that by 2050 this will be killing more people than cancer, unless something is found. And what I've developed is a way of treating incurable wounds using sound, air and water that doesn't use drugs. And so there is no mechanism by which resistance can rise to that. I think I should stop there. Yeah.
Does the quality of the water matter in the machine that you're using to clean?
It's interesting. We use generally tap water. If it's tap water, it's pretty good. I've been out, one of the things I'm very interested in, I didn't have time to do, is this is me in a sewage farm in Kampala during a cholera outbreak. And I went to see that. Those guys who were shoveling feces in the background are probably saving more lives than the local hospital. And we took out my instruments and I said, let's just hook them up to the taps, let's hook them up to places and see whether we can clean things. And it worked. And what I really want to do is, this is in, I went out to northern Ghana. See northern Ghana here? See this picture of northern Ghana? I don't know what the biggest cause of death is in this country, what you might think, heart attacks, strokes. India might be road traffics. In Ghana, it's infection. Chances of dying of infection are 6%, dying before you're 28. 6% chance of dying of infection before you're 28. And that's 28 days, not years. And that's because there's no rubbish collection service. See, it's just here. It's on the ground. And the health service in northern Ghana is motorbikes. And so the motorbike with a first aid kit's on the back, and that goes round to the houses, and if there's been a birth, it looks at the umbilical cord, the cut, severage, looks at any tears in the mother, and just tries to fix it up. So I want to get my devices on the back of each of these motorbikes, powered by the motorbike battery, and start growing skin over all these wounds and cleaning them. So the devices worked well with water, warm water that had been sitting up in tanks in Africa for a long period. There will be, I know certainly there is a level of water, if it's filthy and it's frothy, that it won't work with. So the device actually, the ones that we put into the health service, actually comes with a little filter before that, and it treats it. But it's a good question, but it's pretty robust.
Oh, yeah. I was interested in the dancing bubble, and you were saying about the reflection of the acoustic reflections.
Yeah.
Of that. Have you investigated a radio equivalent, a wireless equivalent of that?
No. I know what one would be, but I'm spread thin. We use one of those in the IED detector, so that is important. I would love to do it for LiDAR, for MRI machines. There's only one of me. No. And for almost everything I show you, we received not a penny of taxpayer funding. In fact, I can't think of a single thing I've shown you that we got a taxpayer dollar for. I've spent the last 11 years writing research grants, every single one rejected. So that's about half my life for the last 11 years. I don't do it anymore. This is why I've set up a company, because my company can sell my toys and raise money and do more research than I ever can relying on the government to decide that I'm worth investing in. So all these projects that I've shown you have been rejected for funding, every single one. And I did put one in for a LiDAR. It's for looking at early detection of fires, and I did put in one on the electromagnetics, as you said, that would be equivalent, where the smoke particles would be used as the equivalent of the dancing bubbles. And I did put in one for the MRI devices, but again, you don't taxpayer funding for that. I haven't got any funding, can't employ anyone. And if I can't employ anyone, I'm expected to do it myself.
Thank you very much. We'll just thank Tim again.